So everybody, this is my favorite part of everything, and that is going right on our YouTube, creating a channel for you so that you can actually see the people that I have been asking questions of on our Ageless Traveler podcast. And today we have two people who are devoted volunteers, both of them with really great backgrounds to begin with, that I would like you to meet so that you can have that inspiration, because there is so much need out there. And one of those needs has to do with your airport. I know that you're very stressed out. I've been told that is the most stressful part of travel. I've been told that airports are one of the reasons that people stop traveling. They just don't want to navigate it anymore. And I use that word advisedly because Sky Harbor in Phoenix, actually, which calls itself, and I think it is, the friendliest airport in America, they actually have a navigator program. So I'm going to start with Barry. Barry Kluger was the senior vice president over at MTV Networks. That means all the networks. And of course, when he becomes a volunteer, he wants it to be something that is really inspiring to him. He's got his T-shirt. He's all there. So thanks, Barry, for being with us. But explain a little bit about the PHX. Is that what it's called? The Phoenix Navigator Program.
PPX Navigators, yes.
Right. What's this program?
Well, I'm fairly new to the program, only 15 months, and it probably is one of the most enjoyable and fulfilling things I've ever done as a volunteer. I trace a lot of it back to my background, which is being in public relations. So I'm used to being out there around the public, trying to craft messages, trying to give people information, trying to reuse jokes from almost 7 decades. Sometimes it
Right.
works, sometimes it doesn't. And our job really is to navigate, is probably the best word,
Right.
help people find their path through what you say is a very difficult and stressful process. You could be a world traveler. You could be a business traveler. You could be a first-time traveler. The minute you show up at the airport with all the noise, with all the signs, with all the people,
Right.
it's bound to cause some stress. So I think for me, I see my job as helping to guide people and helping to make this process a little easier.
So, you use a magic word, and that word was job. So I know that you're required to be there 4 hours every single week. You have a shift, and you religiously do that. In your life, do you see it not so much as a job, but as an obligation? What would happen? What do you do if you get sick one day? Do you feel really, oh, really, I have to be there?
Well, here's the thing, and this is why the Navigator program is great. I was supposed to be working today. My wife was going away for a week with her mother. So I called and said, I can't make it Friday. Can I come in Thursday? So I worked yesterday. And I have some things coming up the next couple of weeks. They're very flexible. I do 2 days a week at 4 hour shifts, 8 a.m. to noon. And sometimes I'll say, you know what? Maybe I'll do 3 days this week. So I do it. Yes, job is not the right word. I love the interaction. These days, people are very insular. There aren't
Right.
people in this age group. Since I don't play pickleball, where do you go to interact with people and see people and have uh, social skills? So that's why, for me, it's not a job. It's an adventure.
Wonderful. Sounds wonderful. By the way, folks, we have been dealing with this issue of being insulated and isolated. Robert Putnam in 1990 wrote a book called Bowling Alone. And what it was all about was bowling leagues disintegrating. More people bowled, but they bowled alone. So this is a wonderful situation where you feel alone in an airport. You generally do. As if you're with a family, even so, the whole family feels like they're stressed out. And here is a case at Sky Harbor where you're really not bowling alone. Now let's say hello to Jane. Jan Doherty. Now, Jan, you are immersed or in a profession. You're working very hard right now in your career that has to do with caregivers and dementia. I would like you to tell us a little bit about it. We're going to have a bigger show about this, and an ebook is coming out, and we're hoping for Jan to be a contributor. And you have been also taken on, as Barry did, being a volunteer. So tell us first a little bit about your background and then your experience as a volunteer in the Sky Harbor program.
Sure, thank you. So I am a registered nurse with advanced preparation and care of older adults. And so through the years, my specialization became caring for people living with dementia and their caregivers. And so I have been designing and implementing programs to support people in a variety of areas. And as I was working at the Banner Alzheimer's Institute, which is a leading memory disorders center, as we met with people following a new or ongoing diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, travel always arose as an area that people still long for. It's about staying connected to people and places we love, and we have to do that through travel. So I subsequently wrote a book called Travel Well with Dementia because my goal was to help people living with this condition and their families to stay connected. That is what life is about. And so for many people, they're going to have to get on an airplane to do that. So I started working with Phoenix Sky Harbor. I met the director of the customer service, Missy Cisneros Contreras, and started talking to her about what's Phoenix Sky Harbor doing about making the airport dementia friendly. And thanks to the leadership of the Phoenix Mayor Gallego, Phoenix Sky Harbor decided that they would become dementia friendly. And so through this process, I learned about the Navigator program, and I thought, how fabulous that I could apply my skills as a nurse, right, which are very similar as Barry's, right, being in PR. How do you help people navigate and make their way through what we know is a very stressful process? And even seasoned business travelers will get stressed in airports, right? Because if you find yourself in an airport you've not been, or you've got weather delays or mechanical issues, it raises stress because everybody is so time focused. But I particularly have a heart for people who really have difficulty navigating airports, people with significant disability, and certainly people with a lot of psychological PTSD, people who have had head injuries, people living with dementia, people with Parkinson's, strokes, etc., how the airport even adds more stress for them. Sure. And the Navigator rule to me was a wonderful way for me to keep a watchful eye for that kind of customer, because I think most people want to shy away because they're fearful. They don't know what to say or how they can help. And I felt like as a navigator, I could do that as well as help the John Q. Public traveler. And so it's really been fun for me. And I will say, we created this wonderful document about how dementia manifests itself in the airport. And I will tell you that fits almost every single person coming through. Yeah. And so we laugh about it because people do become forgetful. People become anxious. People have trouble wayfinding, right?
And they lose things too.
They do. They lose things all the time because everybody's so rushed. People don't know how to read signs. They don't, because, and part of that I have to say is that we're so busy looking at our phones that we're not looking up. And so a lot of the directionality just gets lost.
So I'm going to go to Barry. We have a time for a question each. I'd like to know what your experience was in your training. Now, you mentioned that 14 months, which means that training wasn't that long ago, a year and a half ago. All these issues that Jan just brought up, and you did too, you have to learn to deal with them. And that's part of the educational system that the Sky Harbor has to deliver to you and support you as a volunteer. So what was that process? Was it a couple of hours? Were you trained at the airport or online? How did that work mechanically?
Well, first there was a training session. We all met in a room and we got to know each other. Quite a few people who were flight attendants and even some former pilots, a couple of doctors, people from all walks of life. Then we had a trainee button, and there was we were assigned mentors who, when we did our shifts, they would take us around, we would observe, and then they may step back and say, okay, do you know where the SkyTrain is? Stand here and tell people where to go. And they would correct us or say, good job, and then we'd move around somewhere else. And it was something that I learned. I did not know everything, and that we were there. Two things I learned. One person, a traveler, was very rude, and someone, my mentor said, remember, you're a volunteer. No one should be treating you that way. And just use a big smile, kindness, because one has to understand it could be their personality, or it could be, as Jan has said, the stress that everyone has when they walk into an airport. So you say, you know what, they're in a stressful situation. I'm not going to take it personally. And the other thing is, in the training, we learn specifics. We learned where to eat, what doors to go to. I quite often, just this past week, someone said, I'm looking for the bus to Tucson. So I called the navigator office. I said, hi, I'm calling for a friend who wants to know where the bus station is. So sometimes you just have to remember so much information. You have the app, and you have maps, and you're able to find it. But sometimes you want to convey that because you're a volunteer, you know stuff already, and it gives them another level of comfort.
Well, that's wonderful. And it also shows you that you stay sharp, which is such an important thing. Remember, being a volunteer with passion, as Barry had mentioned on our audio, really propels you. It really does increase your health. I say this all the time, and not just me, it's the National Institute on Health. They've done all the studies. If you are a volunteer, you actually will live longer. What do you think of that for a pitch? Well, it is so. Now, I'm going to finish up with Jan. One of the most impressive things that came out of our podcast, I thought, was the hidden disability issue. And for those who would miss that on the podcast, I don't want them to miss it. Explain what you mean about hidden disability and what the Sky Harbor program does about that.
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing. When you see somebody with a walker, wheelchair, or cane, they have a physical disability. When you see somebody with a service animal, they have some sort of disability. It could be that they have lowered no vision, or a hearing aid, or cochlear implant. All of those are very clear. But people who are living with other disabilities, and particularly cognitive disabilities, memory and thinking, psychological disabilities, anxiety, that can be extreme, Parkinson's disease, where maybe they don't have the movement disorder, it's not seen. And so as a public, we expect, well, they should know, and they should be able to move seamlessly, and they should be able to follow directions and ask questions, and they can't. And yet we shouldn't have to have like the scarlet letter that they have a big A on their forehead saying I have Alzheimer's disease, right? So this hidden disabilities movement is about creating awareness that there are a lot of people who have difficulty in everyday life. So the ADA really paved the way for, cutouts on the curb so we could move our strollers too with ease. So this is raising awareness about people living with a disability that is not so observable. And Phoenix Sky Harbor was one of the first to roll out this special lanyard program called the Compassion Cacti Lanyard, bright green with saguaro cacti, right? So reminiscent of Arizona. That really just informs employees, the TSA, et cetera, that here's a passenger making their way through who's going to need some extra time and compassion from you. Slow down, speak slower, show kindness, show patience. And there is a wider movement actually that began in the UK probably a decade ago, called the Sunflower Lanyard Program. Same thing, it's a bright lime green with daisies on it that signifies here's a person with a hidden disability that needs extra care and compassion. So both are recognized at Phoenix Sky Harbor, but the Compassion Cacti is our signature lanyard that really welcomes people with hidden disabilities to travel and says, here's how we're going to help you and how we're going to help your family do so with greater ease.
Well, that is wonderful and also very inspiring. And you're both very inspiring. And I'm going to tell you two inspirational things. One is that I met Barry through learning about this program, but we're going to be doing a lot of stuff together. He's a guy who knows everything about show business, knows half the people in show business,
Hmm.
and is very willing to share. So I know we're going to be doing a lot more with regard to that. Jan, I also met through this program. And what do I discover? She's working on the same things we're working on, which is making tourism more age-friendly, dementia-friendly, and so on. So we'll be doing more about that. So what do I mean? Get out there, kids. Meet new people. You can never even guess where it'll lead.